Hi, Dearest Lovely. My name is Kaylin Vu, and it's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm the founder of Dear Lovely Universe. My mission is to help people live their best lives possible by transforming them into the best versions of themselves. Hi, Dearest Lovelies. Welcome back to another episode of Dear Lovely Universe. I'm here today with Tonya and Tracy from the We're Not Wing podcast, and I'm really excited because they're really amazing women who really had to overcome so much adversity, and I think they have a lot of really great things to share with you. So let's welcome them to the podcast.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us as guests.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to, share your values and your messages with listeners. So since we just mentioned like your mission and your values, what is the mission of your podcast?
Yeah, so our podcast is about living free from dieting and the scale, and we just really want women to show up fully as they are. We have noticed that ourselves and other women, our friends, people that we know, just keep waiting to lose, however many pounds or to be a smaller size or whatever it may be, marriage, kids, whatever, to live their lives fully. And so we just wanted to have these conversations. We talk about, how we stop waiting. We interview other women who've stopped waiting. And this is an audio medium. So waiting is spelled like weight, like how much you weigh, but it's kind of like a pun, like for waiting as in like time. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so amazing. Our lives are so short, and the best time to live is right now. And I think a lot of, like you're saying, like weight is really big for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. And if we just stopped worrying about that so much, we'd have so much more headspace to enjoy life.
Definitely. Yeah, it takes over a lot of areas of your life and becomes like, it can become its own religion or become its own, obsession that fills up your time, like pursuing this what if I were a different size, what would happen, and or when I'm going to be fitting in that outfit, things will be different. Mm-hmm. It just puts so much focus on this potential future outcome. Meanwhile, your present life is just like passing you by. So taking the focus off of what all of the future needs to be, it really brings you back to just the present and helps you. Yeah, definitely headspace is a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being in the present moment, oh man, it has so many benefits, including, I think, just being grateful for what you do have in itself. I think one of the things that's important to recognize is our body has never given up on us. So we shouldn't give up on it. And our body is full of cells that are literally alive, just like us, but they're inside of us and they don't talk our language, but they are alive. And so we should love and nurture those cells.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So why do you think it's important for someone to look under the surface rather than focus on the external?
I think because we often avoid dealing with whatever's going on by focusing on the external. So it's almost like an avoidance technique to not really dive deeper as to what is going on. A lot of times we're just uncomfortable with emotions and we don't know how to process them. So instead of sitting with those feelings and sitting in the discomfort, we turn to our bodies and we feel like if we can do something, if we can control something, then we can feel better about what's going on inside of us. But the whole time we're just pushing those feelings deeper and deeper down. I've heard it said before that when you don't process your feelings and your emotions, it's like trying to take a big beach ball and put it underwater. And it's like you're struggling on something on the outside and it just keeps popping back up, right? And so it's going to manifest in different ways. And like we were just talking about, like if you're constantly thinking about the future, you're not focusing on what's going on right now. It's the same thing with your body. When you're constantly looking on the outside, you're not focused on what's going on the inside. And I think oftentimes when we do feel that discomfort, it's our body's way of telling us that like something's going on and something needs our attention. Whether that's an emotion, a thought, a feeling, something is going on and we need to make space for it. But we just avoid that because that's not comfortable. And we instead take it out on our bodies and trying to force them to look differently than we were created to be. It's like we think about height. Like we don't try to like take supplements or, change the way that we eat or work out a lot in order to change our height, right? That sounds ridiculous, right? Our height's just naturally going to be what we were predestined to be. And our weight is the same. I mean, we fluctuate, our bodies change over time, but fighting against that and trying to focus on the external, it's really futile because we are predestined. We have, physical factors, like stuff we've inherited from our family, like you look like your ancestors. That's just the way it is. And then there's so many like socioeconomic factors and other things that play into it that you're just designed to look a certain way and to weigh a certain weight. And so it just ends up being, I think I've gotten far from the question that you asked me, but it's just a waste of time, honestly. But
yeah, no, it's so true that people can find so many different outlets to avoid what's going on the inside. And I think picking on your body is definitely one way that people do that. Yeah, I just learned that recently when you're afraid of something or anything along those lines, it's not actually the thing that you're afraid of. It's the relationship that you have with that thing. And so instead of trying different remedies to help that, go deep into that fear, and that's where you will see results.
Yeah, definitely leaning into things. It's not most of our like instinct to I don't know at what point we start thinking we need to run away from our feelings or run away from what we're created to be. But well, I think a lot of things are what we are taught and learned. It's learned behavior. It's learned like that, at least for me, it was learned that like I needed to, like I was going to inherit this set of, body parts from my family members. So they fought against it their whole life. So therefore I needed to fight against how that looked because it didn't look like this ideal body that we've been taught to follow. So that was something that I looked at like, well, why am I running away from this feeling, or why am I running away from all of this, when leaning into it actually has helped like begin the healing process and learning how to accept myself.
Yeah, totally. I think so much of our habits and the way that we think and just the way we're raised has what we learn when we're younger, we can carry with us until we're older, unless we like make the conscious decision to break it. Do you think it's important to teach children that there's a different way to live besides the typical dieting lifestyle?
Definitely. With my two daughters, I think I'm ever learning how to implement like what I want them to see the world as and I want them to see their body as. And I started this work not long. I think it's about the same time I had my first daughter, and she's 4. So realizing like what intuitive eating and accepting and the health at every size movement meant to us, and as women in particular, that we are born intuitive eaters and we really can trust our bodies. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is to help my daughters learn that they can trust their bodies, because I think the world, and I say that in quotes, the world and diet culture, which is like a form of, set of diet rules, anything that is promoting restriction for weight loss. So anything from a like shake or like a weight loss program to just even like Weight Watchers is one, or some type of program that promotes like a lot of eating patterns that restrict and promotes weighting, or promotes getting yourself smaller or to a certain size in order to be healthy. So that's all considered diet culture. And so when I think about what I don't want my daughters to learn that that's the only way to pursue health, and that there's other ways you can pursue health. So first of all, trust your body and know that it's going to tell you whether you need to eat more, rest, stop eating, or move your body. Like if we start really turning those external diet culture messages off, then we have the opportunity to hear what our body is telling us. And I unfortunately didn't learn that right away. So I'm hopeful to help them learn what that looks like. And it's interesting with, there's definitely some parents around me that like I have some that do agree, like some peers that are parents also and have children similar ages, and they agree, or some of them are kind of skeptical, but then they realize like that my kids have a healthy relationship with food. And I mean, as of now, they have a healthy relationship with their body because they're super young. I don't think they've had some of those challenges just yet, but when that comes time, we'll deal with that as well.
Yeah. Can you just try to explain in like simple words for someone who might have never heard what intuitive eating means?
Sure.
What that means?
Yeah. So intuitive eating is the dynamic interplay of listening to your intuition and listening to those internal messages and internal cues of being hungry and needing satiety, like needing to eat. And it's an attunement to your body to know when you need to, like I said before, rest, and when you need to move your body. So it was started by two dietitians. They wrote a book about it, that we are all born intuitive eaters. And we know, if you think of like a child that is just starting to learn how to eat solids, they will feel free to eat. I mean, even a baby that's just eating like drinking breast milk or formula, they will vocalize and say they're hungry, and then they'll turn away from the food when they don't want any more, and when they are good to go. So like but instead there's all these messages that come up, like about portions, or like the types of foods, like that we need to be eating all sorts of, like, checking off all these boxes of different nutrients. But so the two dietitians looked at that, and they realized, like, well, hey, let's lay this out into 10 principles. So there's 10 principles that outline what it looks like to work through returning to that intuitive eating and trusting your intuition.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if Tracy, if I missed anything, feel free to add in.
No, you did awesome. Yeah, I just think, like, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, like, we live in what is called diet culture. So literally everyone is obsessed with losing weight. There's always some kind of like fad diet coming out, some way to like shrink yourself and make yourself smaller. And what studies have found is, over the long haul, like yo-yo dieting like that, like gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, is actually worse for your health than just maintaining whatever size you were meant to be. But I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast episode on like why that is, like why diet culture is so prevalent. We have theories based in like patriarchy and racist views that like this is because, you know, we want men that are in power want to oppress those that are not in power. So anyway, I don't mean to get off on a tangent. I get very passionate about it. But basically, what these two dietitians found was their clients that were coming in, they would do really well on a diet for like maybe like 3 months. And like, well, I use that in quotations, right? Like for like maybe like 3 months. And then they would, quote unquote, like what we say, like fall off the wagon, right? Because our bodies were never meant to maintain that type of restriction. And they've done multiple studies. The Minnesota starvation study is a big one that is cited a lot, where they starve these like prisoners. I think they were prisoners of war or something like that. Isn't that right, Tonya? Mm-hmm. But anyway, and when they were faced with the restriction, like their bodies, they did lose weight, but then when they were given food again, they almost like ate beyond their fullness to like make up for compensating for not having food. And then there's like this fear that comes with it, like a lack of security around food and like feeling like I have to eat this now because I'm not going to be able to have it again later, which very much is what happens with someone who diets a lot, which is a lot of people in our culture. So intuitive eating came as a result of them seeing their patients unable to maintain these like restrictive diets. And so it goes hand in hand with a movement called health at every size, which basically just means like you have the right to pursue health at any size that you're at. And you have the right and the freedom to feel comfortable in your body. It's more of a social justice movement, but it oftentimes is cited with intuitive eating because they kind of go hand in hand, because health at every size gives people of any size permission to pursue health. So
yeah, everyone is entitled to pursue health. It's something that everyone is able to do and should love themselves doing it. I heard someone say to me that he was like, what's the good of starving yourself and not loving yourself when you could just eat and love yourself? And it kind of stood out to me because it's what he said was really true. I mean, I think loving yourself overweighs not eating or not eating enough.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. But unfortunately, in our society, the way that we look and how much we weigh is viewed over health, right? So part of the work of intuitive eating and health at every size is uncorrelating that health is related to weight, which is just not necessarily true. You can practice health promoting behaviors at any size. And that in the long run has shown to be more effective than constantly being told to lose weight. But unfortunately, our medical system is built based on the BMI, which is not an accurate measure of health overall. So
yeah. I have a friend who her mom is always like picking at her waist when she walks around the house, and like I guess you could say, is on social media, and she's always I feel like she's trying to look her best. And I just think that with some people that I guess that have some kind of audience, or at least mentally think they do, they feel some sort of pressure to look a certain way, and she's like dieting, and I just, it's really noticeable how in that position they can become a little unhappy with themselves. I think that if someone is like that, probably the best thing to do is to just, I mean, I say this, and I know it's not easy, but to be your authentic self in any way possible, in every way possible. And when you're your authentic self, I think that stems into so many areas in your life, like not trying to be a certain way, because you know that you're being your authentic self in any way that you are, and you love yourself for the way you are, so it doesn't matter what people think about it.
Yeah, but that like touched a tender place in my heart when she said her mom is picking on her weight. Like, I'm just curious to know like how much that's impacted her. Like I don't know your friend, but I just know that relationship, Tonya and I can both attest to that our mothers have played a big role in the way that we view our bodies. And so if her mother is telling her that she needs to lose weight or picking on her body, those wounds are very deep, and it's going to take a lot of therapy and a lot of healing to be able to show up as your authentic self. Because when you don't have that from your mother, you have to mother yourself, and that takes a lot of work from someone who's had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell it's very deep.
Yep.
But without going too deep into that, what is there any other advice that you have for someone who could be going through, deep traumas associated with being told or picked on for their weight?
Well, one thing that I started doing when I looked into this work of what does it look like to restore my intuitive eater? What does it look like to pursue health regardless of my size? I did have to go back to when did I start to realize that my body was like, I was unsatisfied with my body. And I thought about that age and I've had to really have a conversation with that Tonya. I call it my 12-year-old Tonya, even though like it was a kind of a wide range of ages and different circumstances, but the general time of that. And I've gone back and sat down and had conversations with her, looked her in the face and said, like, you are worthy, and your body is the inheritance of your grandmothers and grandfathers, and you have the ability to just to do so much and to love so much, and you are loved. And so a lot of reinforcement of that, to kind of relearn like that I don't have to fight against my body, and that I don't have to be frustrated. And so body image work is something that happens all the time. I read a quote recently from another provider on Instagram that said, body image work, like, when will it ever end? And her answer back was, when we stop having a body. So I'd like to say, that'd be wonderful, like, if I could just say, well, I did this, this, and this, and this, and now I'm 100% better and healed. And but it's I'm in a place where I know where those what pops up. I can see that, and I reframe those thoughts to support feeling better, or to support the work that I've done.
Yeah, and I would just sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I would just say too, like, if you're someone, what we're talking a lot about is like disordered eating. So there's a whole spectrum of eating disorders. And I think what often people don't realize is that chronic dieting and chronically trying to change your weight is a symptom of disordered eating, which is on the eating disorder spectrum. And my advice would be to get professional help, depending on if like you're identifying with a lot of what we're talking about. I would say seek someone who is who practices intuitive eating and promotes health at every size. Tonya does coaching around it for intuitive eating. I do coaching around body image. Find someone, reach out to someone who you feel like will, like Tonya said, give you the tools to work through it, because I don't think it ever, and I know it doesn't ever really go away, but those thoughts still pop up for me about body image. Like, who are you to like show up like looking like the way you look? I still have those thoughts, but I now have the tools to process those thoughts, which is what Tonya was saying with like reframing and stuff like that.
Totally. That's such a great point to bring up about reframing. And I think people could do this in a lot of areas in their lives. I'll just give an example. There was one time I was driving on the freeway and I saw this ad, like, and they had spray tanned this lady. Like, it was really bad. I'll just say that. And the first thought that went through my head was something not very nice, right? And then I was like, I caught myself and I was like, okay, no, she's a beautiful woman in any way, shape, or form. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Like, I shouldn't be thinking this. And I think it's like that awareness of catching yourself when you are thinking of something negative and then putting a positive frame on it is just so important. And I think it can literally over time reframe the way that you view the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've noticed since we've done work on like the area of food and body, it's also like trickled out into other areas of our life too, like work and family and relationships. And yeah.
Yeah. So where do you think that being comfortable with yourself stems from?
Like, how do you become comfortable with yourself? Or
Yeah, sure.
I think a lot of what Tonya already mentioned, I think doing a lot of inner child work. I think being comfortable with ourselves, we all carry wounds from childhood. And so I think doing, like Tonya said, the inner child work really helps. And I think giving yourself radical love and acceptance, which really I think comes from tuning into yourself and parenting those places, those wounds. And we love Brene Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown, but she talks a lot about just showing up as like your authentic self and giving yourself that place of belonging. Because you're never going to find that belonging. You're never going to find that love. It's never going to be enough if you're looking outside of yourself, whether that be with like food or whether that be with alcohol or whether that be with like possessions or whatever it is. It's never going to satisfy. You have to find that internally.
Yeah, 100% agree. Outer validation will never be enough. Never. Like, you could die wanting to please someone else if you don't start looking inwards for that inner validation. It's not some, it's a behavior that we learn when we're younger. I think especially we want to please the people that we love the most, like our families and our close friends. And I mean, why wouldn't we? We love them and they love us. But I think that when we stop trying to seek their validation and instead we seek our inner validation, like you're talking about, that's when you can actually be free, mentally free, in a lot of areas in your life.
Yeah, I think the pursuit of trying to change yourself and trying to look a certain way or be a certain way definitely can take over your time, as we talked about, and take over that ability to again bring yourself back to the present. So then if you have those times where you realize, like, okay, no, I am worthy, I am everything I need to be, then it kind of just helps you move on. It's like, okay, well, cool, I'll just move on to the next thing now, or I'm able to think about what's actually going on instead of being, I don't know, self-centered.
Yeah, totally.
Into your own world.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to say that what people like say to you or do to you, or like the reaction to things, is more of them than it is you, because it has to do with their ego, their viewpoints, the way they see the world, and so much more. And it has a lot less to do with you. So let's just say an example. You are walking down the street and some random stranger goes up to you and says, "Wow, you're so ugly." And either you think you're ugly and you'll agree with that person, or you don't think you're ugly and that won't matter to you. But in any way, you didn't know that person at all. And the truth is that they probably don't think they're attractive. So it really has nothing to do with you. It's just everything to do with them.
Mhm.
Yep, people project their insecurities on you. And something that I've learned is that if someone is judging you in a way, they're judging themselves in that same way 10 times harder.
Exactly. Exactly. I also learned that if someone is treating you, will only accept the treatment of how you treat yourself. So if you're, you know, in some kind of relationship of some sort, friendship, romantic, anything like that, if you treat yourself better than they treat you, then you will leave that person. But if you treat yourself worse than that person treats you, then you'll accept everything that they do to you. So, and this is a little, I think, off the topic of eating disorders, but I think it does have a similarity, because how you view yourself and how you treat yourself has a lot to do with the way that you treat your body and eat.
No, absolutely. It's all, I see the relationship. I feel like it's all related. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Do you have any final messages that you want to share?
We just always say in our podcast, like, we just hope this has encouraged you to stop waiting and start showing up exactly as you are.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Tonya and Tracy. I really appreciate, coming on the podcast. Where can our listeners find you?
Our Instagram handle is at We're Not Waiting, and our website is we'renotwaiting.com. And my personal Instagram is at Tonya by the Spoonful, and also TonyaByTheSpoonful.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my personal Instagram is at the Tracy Vasquez, and website is tracyvasquez.com.
Awesome. And I just want to clarify for the listeners, waiting as in wait, like the not waiting in line, but waiting as in your actual wait. So
Yes.
yeah, so you can
Yes.
find them at we'renotwaiting.com and
WEIGHTING. Yeah.
yes.
We're punny.